is layer 1 blockchain purpose-built for the Open Metaverse.
There we go. That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Neal, would you give?
I've had a long day, so I'm going to participate in Stone Guru.
So, do you have a pronouncement of any sort you want to make?
No, just the idea of the metaverse emerged 30 years ago this month, like this week. When Snow Crash was published, and a lot has happened since then. I would say the basic point of what we're doing is that any kind of top-down idea of what the metaverse can be is wrong, and that it's got to be bottom-up in the sense that there are so many people now already building things in the metaverse on so many different levels that their combined creative output and just the number of good ideas emerging there is the source of it all. It's the engine that's been the power of this thing. And so, a lot of opportunities have come my way to sort of, bless one particular idea of what the metaverse is going to be, or one particular metaverse project. And I've always kind of instinctively avoided that because for every person who gets through to me in an email and wants to do that, there's 100 more working on their own ideas, and to say that one is the correct version of it is to disappoint all of those other people. So it seems like the best way that I can be useful here is to participate in an infrastructure building project that would create opportunities for a lot of different people to make things, to realize their own creative visions and dreams in this medium. And so that's why layer 1, in the simplest possible terms, we can get into more technical explanations of what that means and what it's going to do. But in 2,500 words or less.
You've all read Neal's books, right? I mean, you knew that 25 words or less was absolutely the most impossible request I could put.
I heard 2,500. That's the harmful journalism. That's the simplest way I can.
That was good. Actually, that's a great way. I love it. Like, let's just make that the thing. We're just doing this as we go here. The bottom up idea. I think it's a really smart way to think about it. Neal, you were on stage with your friend Jaron Lanier earlier today, and he was talking about value chains and this idea that you don't. There are two ways to go about building these things. Whether the internet itself and crypto is really just no different whatsoever. It can be all about capturing value and retaining it for yourself, or building systems that actually create value through chains that continue to grow and grow, right? So what is it, I'm hoping that that's part of what you guys envisage for this, that this is a collective, constructive exercise, not a sort of like monopolistic exercise. And what is it about the architecture of the model that, if that's the case, brings us to that vision?
I'll just say real quickly, I don't know if Karen has made it here yet, but we had a great conversation a couple months ago. He was talking about crypto that builds as the thing that he really cares about, as opposed to crypto that merely concentrates value. And then what he talked about today was exactly that. He said, how do you structure a crypto system that enables people to build on each other's work and create, a larger system of value and reward people who are value creators. And so that's kind of the general theme of what we're trying to do here. Exactly what that means, Peter will explain.
Yeah, so this is a sweet moment for actually seeing Patrick Merck here, fellow brother in arms. Those of you who don't know Patrick, he's I think the first Bitcoin attorney, really. Yeah, we could say that.
And you need to check out his books, by the way, just in case.
Yeah, Patrick's been really good. Patrick's actually an investor in the Lamina1 side. I'm leaning on him here. But when I started the Bitcoin Foundation with Gavin and Andreessen, there was so many people who thought Bitcoin would be something huge. but they actually like, it was a bit uncoordinated, you know, and one of the things Patrick did really well at the foundation was start to set up a little bit of structure so people could volunteer and get involved and do all these things that they wanted. And what I learned from that era of crypto, really like the first era of crypto, was just how like it's about all the people. It's not about some group or company. You know, crypto is a completely new way for humans to organize around these things. It's like the open source, figure out how to make money, and together now we have this new way of human organization. So, like, you know, as Neal's saying, you know, you're saying it's bottom up. We're talking value chains. Neal's saying the thing I'm supposed to be interpreting right now. I just think of it as like giving the world a space to build what they want and making sure that the value flows fairly to the people doing that. And that feels like the most important thing.
So what are you doing in terms of the architecture and the sort of first principle design here? I had a conversation today as well on stage with Punk6529, who I'm sure many of you know is one of the more influential thinkers in this space, a pseudonymous figure who really has some big ideas about what the metaverse should look like. He's building out on his metaverse with the idea of the land part of it was zero, right? That you're not buying this monopolizing exercise. So that's one of his design principles.
Yeah.
He thinks it's going to be interesting for how that's an experiment, right? For how then what happens to build upon that free land part, all the services and stuff become part of the capital.
Yeah.
Part of it. What are you guys doing in terms of thinking through design, whether it's the economics, the token economics, and or the the technologies, the layer one, the wide layer one?
Yeah. Should I say something? Yeah, I can say a couple things. Yeah, so our my thought on the real estate question is it's going to be metaverse as a service in Lamina1. So you're going to have the right to launch and create your own virtual real estate project on our platform. So a little bit like Ethereum, Vitalik launched Ethereum as like Bitcoin as a service, basically. He's like, look, Bitcoin's like, we can do it in like 20 lines of serpent code, it's pretty smart. And you can have your own Bitcoin, like, look at this. And that pitch was right. Like, ETH's value is fundamentally about making it very easy to tokenize things. And so he was right. He was, that was like 8 years ago. I think a lot of people want to build their own version of the metaverse. So we will be giving people the tools, like, just to be like, this is what I want in my virtual real estate. I want to charge a lot. I'm a Georgist. Land should be worth nothing. There's a lot of possibilities there. So,
Apologies to Georgians.
Georgism is, I don't think it's bad, but it's not the only way.
Okay, and Neal, you looked at that and said, yes, this is the one I want to give, as you put it, your blessing to. Why? What's the feeling about it?
It's not one experience. So that's definitely what I don't want to. I mean, look, you can make an analogy here to how game studios sometimes operate. You've got with an Epic or a Valve, you've got first party, you've got second party, you've got third party content. So you've got a game engine, you've got a platform that you're creating that's open to anyone who wants to build an experience on that platform. And what you really want is lots and lots of third party people building whatever the fuck they want to build on your platform. But to make that work, there's value in doing some first party stuff. Second party is a whole other thing we can talk about later. But the real distinction is kind of things that we developed in-house that you do to dog food your own platform and to kind of show what's possible. And third party is really what you want to see happening as people adopt what you're doing and make use of it. So I think we're going to see both. I want to see both coming out of this project. I definitely have some first party ideas that I want to realize, but it's not going to be like what I work on is the metaverse and everything else isn't. It's just going to be, you go to this one place, you can see something that Neal worked on, but there's a million other things that you can experience as well that emerge from third party efforts. and that's all fine.
So Neal dropped this on me like 2 weeks ago. I was like, wait, you're working on new content for this? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. But I've been not asking him about it because I don't know if he wants to tell us.
Can we at least though, can I speculate?
Yes.
Anything to do with swords?
It actually is. So one of the, safe guess, but so one of the things that I've been, so a really weird thing happened when I joined Magic. This is going to be somewhat digressive, but
Digress away, my friend.
Please go.
basically 4 people showed up literally at my house with a giant box, and when I opened it, it contained Orcrist, the Goblin Cleaver, forged by the High Elves of Gondolin, in the first age of Middle Earth. And it was it was a moment, and it was a thing that Rody Alves had acquired from Weta Workshop in New Zealand, and he was basically giving it to me as a hostage because he said they were going to make a Snow Crash sword for me, and but it wasn't done yet. So I got to hold on to his copy of Orcrist until the Snow Crash sword was done. So like 4 years later, they finished it. And that's nothing on Weta, it's just the spec kept changing. And it was complicated. But so I have this really cool Snow Crash sword. I had to trade it for Orcrist. We had a whole ceremony in Rony's office.
You guys are huge nerds. Like, I have to say that out of jealousy.
Yeah, it was probably the apex moment of nerdiness in the history of the world. Right there. But a couple of years ago, well, 1 year ago, whenever the first NFT sold for $1 bajillion, I started talking to the people at Weta about doing more swords. So out of that has emerged a project that is called Masterworks for the Metaverse, where the sword making crew at the Weta Workshop is making more swords that are tied to the Snow Crash universe. And because they are the way they are, I've had to create original material explaining how they're connected to the Snow Crash world. Because basically, the people at Weta won't lift a finger until you explain the entire backstory. Like, you ask them to make a belt.
Like, what happened before the Goblin Wars?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, well, you say this belt is made out of wrought iron, but what kind of ore was the wrought iron forged from? Was it magnetite or hematite?
We've got a dwarf fortress
right. So I had to provide all of that before they would deign to begin work. So anyway, in we think November, the first of these is going to be released. There's a teaser page up now at Weta Workshop's website, but so that's happening, and I can't remember where this all.
You were going to do some content.
He said, I might be this aggressive for a second.
It wasn't, but this, yeah, the content.
Yeah,
The content for the
Actually, can I poll the crowd really quickly? I have an idea that the Lamina1 team does not like, but I like, so I want to see who's right. So Neal's gonna sell these swords. What I want to do is actually, like, if you own one of the swords, they'll have a chip in them that means they're like a physical object and a digital object together, which is, I think, really cool. I want it so that if you own one of them, you get better node mining rewards on the chain. So like you can you'd be like one of the masters of the metaverse if you have this sword. Could you cheer first if you like that idea? Okay, now can you boo if you don't like that idea?
Oh! You biased it by asking for the cheaters first.
I don't know, I think that'd be fun.
All right. We're trying to democracy
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like the governance token can decide.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, the sword owners become the aristocrats.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
I guess there's some ideas in the map. We'll hear
That sounds a lot like.
We don't like pay to win.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. So, okay. Speaking of democracy and utopias, Neal, Snow Crash is a dystopian novel, and so people are a little confused, right? That here's this man who painted this picture where the metaverse was first conceived of. This concept was there, and heroes living in this dystopian world. And now here you are embracing a metaverse. How do you explain that? Like, do you see this is an optimistic future for you, or is it going to happen anyway? We have to do it,
Yeah.
or am I misconstruing?
You're misconstrued.
Next question. We chatted about this earlier, but I'm setting myself up as the dupe here because I know what you're at.
That is true. So let's all respect that self setup. Snow Crash as a novel is both a dystopian novel and a parody of dystopian novels, right? So, I mean, by that point, dystopian novels have become already such a thing. It was like they were begging to be made fun of on a certain level. And so a lot of what you're seeing there is dystopian, depending on how you read it, it's either like, ooh, that sounds bad, or, oh, haha, Stephenson making fun of people who thinks everything is that shitty. But the metaverse itself in the book is kind of neutral, and it's kind of like electricity. It's just a thing that's there, and people use it in different ways. And a lot of what we see there, because of the overall tone of the book, is sort of kind of slapstick dystopian kind of. You're seeing kind of the negative side of it. It's clear in the book that there are certain specific places and experiences in the metaverse that are beautiful, right? So Hero's house is described in a fair amount of detail, and Ing's house is they're described as being exquisite works of art, not just in their visuals, but even in their auditory environments. And so it's clear that these people have spent a bunch of money and hired a bunch of people to make really beautiful places in the metaverse that are sanctuaries, they're refuges where they like to go. So I can totally get how anyone reading Snow Crash could see it as exclusively grim and dystopian, but there's hints that are planted in there that it could be a lot more than that. It could be a place for art and beauty.
You said something on stage today as well that I thought was really interesting about how we have this instinctively negative. Well, I would say the mainstream press, which I kind of belong to, has an instinctive way of talking about things like dystopia. Oh yes, social media bad, metaverse bad. It's all this like we're this disembodied, we're not appreciating the human realities of this. And you talked about how real emotions still are, right? And that even as our humanity continues to exist, whether it's in the digital or the physical realm. You want to just elaborate on that a bit?
Well, I was just talking about the fact that, it came out of a question from Leah, the moderator, about the distinction that a lot of people talk about between real and virtual, and those as being very different, disparate things. And the point I was just trying to make is that you may say that, but if you're reading a response to a tweet and your face flushes, your heart beats faster because you're angry, or if you feel a feeling of joy and happiness because somebody has said something very loving to you, then who's to say that's not real? That's as real as anything you can experience in the physical world. And so to make that distinction, I think, it's like a pre-social media way of thinking. It's like it's before we started to include multiple humans in the conversation before social interactions became important. And now I think the internet is mostly about social interactions. When I play video games now, I used to hate playing games with other people in them, but now it's the main reason I play games, because I've connected with other people who I enjoy spending time with in virtual environments.
He's not invited me to play with him, just in case you're curious.
Highly selective.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I mean, one thing I was thinking today when you were talking about that is a lot of our online interactions are very low bandwidth. You know, they're like just text. You know, you get a text message. You know, is your friend mad? Are they not mad? You know, you get somebody that exists in the liminal space. You know, I'm not sure, but this is very high bandwidth. The reality is very high. You know, physical reality is very high bandwidth. Yeah. And I wonder, as we get more bandwidth with the digital world, if those distinctions are going to shrink more. You know, so
no, I mean, I think that's going to be what's so fascinating about this moment. Clearly, Neal, you were saying like this, a lot of metaverse ideas that are just, you know, we know about a certain company that changed its name to this effect and is charging 47% for everything's building. It seems like that's one way of thinking about a metaverse, right? And then there's this
People never charge more than 46%.
Well, yes. Wow, that's way to break the market.
we appreciate those who went before us. Thank you very much.
Well, it's great American capitalism at work right there. So, you know, with that in mind, where do you take the? I mean, I think there's multiple metaverses, right? I mean, in some respects, you talk about the metaverse in the book, right? And now, you know, the metaverse seems to be completely misplaced. I mean, there are just all these potential silos popping up.
Yeah.
Where does one wonder? Do you look to try to create durability? I mean, how do you grapple with the fact that we may well be creating all of these reconstructed Web 2 type, you know, centralized silos?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually one of the big technical things I want us to do. We've had, I've been interested in cross-chain tech really, I don't know, for a very long time, let's just put it that way.
Since there was more than one chain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I really hated.
You may have even foreseen the second chain coming.
I cannot prove that, so we'll just leave it on the talk. So right now we've got, you know, all these cross-chain provers. There's like a fair amount of good cryptographic tech. You know, starting just simple stuff like Merkle proofs between chains, and where there's some more sophisticated sorts of accumulator type functions in cryptography that give you more features. But none of the current chains actually that are like a modern chain in other ways really are designed to have like the kinds of dense interconnections I think we'll see between these things. So for me, like, it's a multi-chain world. It's going to be forever from now on. Actually, I think we want to give people the tools. We won't call them bridges. I think we're going to call them portals, maybe. That's if Neal approves the word portal, we'll use the word portal.
Use his blessing.
Yeah. So, but that is one of our engineering lifts. There are chains that are like, inside our world, it'll be easy, like Polkadot or Avalanche or like that. There are chains right now that are like, yep, fork the whole thing, and we're going to make it easy to cross-connect. That's one of my goals.
That sounds like an important one to me. Look, folks, I'm going to have to run. Like Cinderella, I have to get to a ball. The Met Gala, right? So there you go.
Could you send your avatar to the Met Gala?
I should be able to send my avatar here. You're right. This is unreasonable. So I'm going to storm out of here in disgust and leave you to confront questions from the audience on your own. I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
You look out for yourselves on the stage here. I'm going to make a mess of things.
No, thank you very much for coming.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And thank you all for coming to Consensus.